Good morning. I don't know. I'm not used to headphones, Jonathan. I feel like I should have a metal detector. I'll be driving a Lancaster bomber or something. I'll try and moderate. Good morning, sir. Anyway, and it's thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that.
I'm just trying to get the. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
I can. Yeah. You're really nice to look at anyway, so it doesn't matter if you freeze. You know, it's just kind of it's like a picture what people can like.
It must be. It must be. And the other thing is, if the postman buzzes, I'll have to go and let him. I'll have to go and let the letters in. So
you can do what you want. You can let your dog out or anything. We don't mind here. You know, we're all very bohemian. I've dressed up for you anyway, and I've washed me hair.
So where's the studio, mate? Where's the studio?
It's a secret look. It's my friend's works, but I'm not allowed to reveal it because it's like kind of. It's not government. It's not like national security, but he doesn't want people. It's just basically in Wigan. I'll text it. I'll text it to you. It's kind of like the Bat Cave.
Yeah.
We call it Palletwood Studios because the back of us is old pallet wood. That
it looks really good actually. Yeah.
Well, you could put that in a rich person's house and charge him like 300 grand, you know. I've
got a friend in Tenerife who's paying somebody to make all her furniture out of pallets. So.
Really, it's all the thing. It's all the rage.
Right, do you know
Tenerife and Wigan.
That image?
What's 1 minute? What? Carl?
Do you know why the image is stuck on that?
Colin, are you keeping the image? Are you keeping your image as a picture, Jonathan?
No, it's gone for some reason. It's gone into half and half mode. But I can turn the camera off. I mean, because hopefully it'll resume at some point, kind of thing. But we can just still converse, you know. Yes, just if I turn the picture off, we might get slightly better audio quality. That's all.
What do you want to do?
Can we ring him back and just see if it kicks up?
Colin says, "Can we ring you back quickly and see if it kicks in?"
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, good morning again, Jonathan.
Good morning again.
I first encountered you. I'd read a few of your books, and I decided for some reason to write my life story. So I penned myself away.
It was too. Very good.
Well, you know, just to tell the people who watch my channel and all that how we became kind of acquainted. It wasn't like you saw me in a shop doorway and bought a big issue off me or something like that. It was I found you on Twitter and I'd wrote this manuscript and it was all illegible because I never went to school and it was ungrammatical. And I contacted you and I remember you saying to me, you said, "You and me are never going to make money out of literature now because it's all about, say, if Joey Essex gets a book or Gemma Collins, they get a ghostwriter to write their life, and it's all about economics now, and it's all about the name rather than content kind of thing."
It's true, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Do you think in modern times, if Charles Bukowski came around with all his work, he'd get fired off saying, "Who are you? What reality TV shows have you done?"
Yeah, that's the problem. It's there's lots of talent out there, but everything is based on whether you've been on the telly or not. And if you haven't, it's tough. Now, there are still talented people who get on the telly, and I wouldn't decry anybody because they're on the telly. We were talking about Taylor Swift the other day.
Okay.
And I think it's my brother was saying, he'd seen her on something and said she's really smart. And not many of these people make it in the big time if they're really thick. They've got, they've mostly got. And I was even thinking about, Harry Maguire, who's been in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
And I must admit, when I heard the news about him, people will be listening to this in a while this week about him, hanging out in some bar in Greece and getting into fights and stuff. I thought, what a twat. You don't need to be doing that.
No.
But when I heard him on the radio yesterday, I thought, yeah, it's fair enough. He gave a very good account of himself. And, generally, he's probably, a smart fella. because you can't do what he does to that level of, quality.
No.
I mean, he's almost good enough for Wigan, isn't he?
Well, I know nothing about football, Jonathan. I was the fat kid at school with a sick note every sports day. So I spent my sporting career at school either stood by the touchlines, or the teacher sent me into class to draw pictures. And by the time I left school, I was like Leonardo da Vinci. I was doing that much drawing and stuff like that. But you were the first journalist to uncover, a bit of a tangent here. You were the first journalist to uncover the identity of the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, which is pretty monumental. How did you?
I just woke up and realised they didn't have any toilet rolls in the house. So I went over to the little shop over the road to buy them. On the way, I thought, oh, bloody hell, Jimmy's going to ask me, what was your best moment in your career? And what the fuck am I going to tell him? And then I thought, actually, yeah, I know which one it was. Of course, it was about midnight on the 2nd of January, 1981.
Okay.
I think it was 81. Could have been 82. I don't know. When I was a reporter at the Yorkshire Post, and the whole time I'd been living in Leeds, been overshadowed by the Ripper. It was like, now you go out to the shop and you think, oh shit, I've not got the bloody mask. Like, my wife would say, can you pop down to the shop and get, some whatever. And I was saying, oh God, I might have run into the Yorkshire Ripper, and because it was all around us. It was like in the streets around us. He was, in the last days, in last weeks, he was killing people around us in the neighbouring streets. And everything had been overshadowed by this, this terrible uncovering story, just continuing. And I hadn't been very involved in it because I was like the lowest form of human life on the newspaper. I was the youngest trainee and so on. But the crime writer, a wonderful guy called Roger Cross, who's still well known in the north of England. He's a fabulous journalist, great, terrific connections with the police and everything. And he kind of adopted me as his leg man, basically. Okay. I never really knew why. I think maybe he just thought I was a fucking idiot. He was prepared to go out, and do the work for him and not get any of the glory. But I couldn't have been happier. It was, it's fantastic. And I was, it was, and it started from the moment he was arrested. So, right, picture the scene, right? Okay. It's just the day after New Year's Eve. We're home in Leeds. We've got, I think a little baby or two little babies. It's just a normal domestic, after Christmas, after New Year kind of night, freezing cold, snow on the ground. Yeah. And we were watching the ITN news, and they had a news flash. It just said that a man has been arrested with some connection to the Yorkshire Ripper case. Now, this had happened before. There'd been a few instances of it, but there was a look in the that news flash. This is for real. And like a minute after, Roger Cross phoned me and said, right, he said, I hope you're not doing anything because you're going to be busy tonight. We're on. We know his name is Peter. He's Peter Sutcliffe. Okay. And we know he lives in the Heaton area of Bradford. Okay. That's all. He said, go to Bradford, get on it. So I climbed into my rusty Fiat 124, hoping it would fucking make it, because you never know. And it's really weird sometimes. Sometimes when you're in a historic moment, sort of, you don't know it. No. But this was the time I remember getting in the car and thinking, this is going to be something I'm going to remember all my life. And I mean, it might not, but there was a very, very strong chance this was going to be a big one. It just felt right. It was freezing cold on the car, the holes all over the car. I'm thinking, when they make a movie of this, I wonder if they're going to get a similar rusty Fiat 124. And so I head over to Bradford, and I had to look in the A to Z because I was Leeds. I didn't really know Bradford that well. Okay. But I got myself to what I knew was Heaton. And then I did what you had to do in those days, which was got out looking for a phone box with the phone book still in it. You couldn't Google.
Old school.
Yeah, so I found a phone box, held my breath. Remember how they used to smell of piss?
Urine, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of miss that.
I was going to say it's almost a nostalgic thing, isn't it?
You don't get it with mobiles unless you urinate all over your mobile, and I found it kind of damages your service, kind of.
You could market that as a kind of a gimmick, couldn't you?
Yeah,
A phone box, a mobile that smells exactly like an old phone box.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So I got in this phone box. Now I didn't know at that stage because I'm a southerner. I'd only been in Yorkshire a couple of years. I didn't know that Sutcliffe was a really common name in Yorkshire, particularly. Herbert Sutcliffe, the great cricketer, was one of them. But anyway, so there are 3P Sutcliffes. I work out that this is, I think it's Bradford 10. I think so. I look in the phone book and there's 3P Sutcliffes in Bradford 10, or if that was Bradford 10, and write all the names down, look them all up at me A to Z, no GPS or no sat nav, and head off to the first one. And I'm not really sure what I'm looking for. I get a feeling there'll be some activity around the address of the man who's just been arrested as the Yorkshire Ripper. And just a semi and a regular street, nothing happening there. I thought, this doesn't look right. I went to another one, which was a posh detached house somewhere. Didn't look right. Then I went to the third one, and literally as I turned into this street, Garden Lane, there's this house that's high up above, and I actually said to myself, fuck, it's the Addams family house.
Right.
It looks so weird.
Okay.
And outside it there's this dates it a Morris 1100 Panda car.
Right.
I'm thinking, I've got this. And so I parked the car up the way a bit, and I'm sort of skating on the icy pavements. It's really very cold night. And a young copper is standing outside the house, and he just said, "What are you doing here?" And I thought, I said, "Oh, I'm from the Yorkshire Post." He said, "Oh, fine." I don't know what was the wrong answer to the question, really.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd said I'm his brother or something. And I remember looking at that scene and thinking, this is going to be like the centre of the world by tomorrow. And 24 hours later, there were TV crews from the whole world there. I mean, it was nobody remembers how big it was across the world.
Can I just say, Jonathan? I remember there used to be a programme on the television in the early 80s called TVI, and they did a Yorkshire Ripper special, and it showed a silhouette of a man, and it said, "This could be your dad or your brother," and everything. I remember the fear. I as a child, I remember the fear. And I also remember my mother saying to my father, "It could be you," and he went ballistic, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But
then what's that happening? I mean, as we later discovered, he had a habit. He'd been in a department store in Bradford. I can't remember the name of it now. Eaton's, I can't remember. The week before Christmas, and he'd been in a lift with a couple of young girls, and got chatting to them about, you can't be too careful these days. The Yorkshire Ripper's about. I mean, what a fucking pervert.
Yeah, he'd probably got a buzz off that, wouldn't he?
I'm sure he did. I can kind of, I can imagine. Yeah, well, but so I got the house, and then I thought, well, I'll do what journalists do: go and knock on the neighbour's house, and I was open. The door was opened by Mr. and Mrs. Garside, who lived there. And I said, look, I'm sorry to bother you, but Sunday night and everything, but I just wondered whether you knew that your neighbours are possibly going to be charged with one of the Yorkshire Ripper murders tomorrow. That's all we knew, one of them.
Okay.
And they said, "Oh, we always said.
Really?
And they let me in, and we talked for about 2 hours about this strange guy next door who they noticed whenever there was a murder, whenever you heard on the radio there's been another murder, he'd be in the garden burning his clothes.
Okay.
I said, "Did you ever mention this to the cops?" And they said, "Yeah, again and again. We just kept telling him, we're sure it's him. We're sure it's him." And
interesting.
do you remember this thing about they were looking for somebody with a Geordie accent?
Yeah. Was it called Wearside Jack? Am I wrong?
Wearside Jack. They were looking for somebody with a Geordie accent, and they just weren't prepared to listen to anybody.
Yeah.
Burns, he's a weird guy anyway. He looks exactly like the photo fit. I mean, it was must be the best photo fit ever. It was just him. It was like a portrait. He burns his clothes every time there's a murder, and he's a strange guy. Oh, and he's a lorry driver.
Yeah.
And they were always saying it's likely to be a lorry driver, and they, you know, you ask all the things you're going to ask, like, you know, is there you know, got any photos? And you know, why would anybody have photos of the next door neighbour? But they didn't. But they said, "Well, I'll tell you who you might go and talk to. Is he's got this wife, Sonia, and her parents live in Tanton Crescent up in I can't remember which part. It's a big council estate up in north of Bradford."
Okay.
So I think by this time it's getting on to kind of midnight, and I linked up with a photographer and another colleague, and we went up to Tanton Crescent. We saw, we got to the address, number 44 it was, and I guess it's about midnight by now. And I'm thinking, I'm really going to have to knock on the door and say, you know, I wonder whether you knew if your son-in-law, you know, is the Yorkshire Ripper. And so we knocked on the door, and the father-in-law, Bodan, who was a Czech immigrant, poked his head out the window from the bathroom above the side entrance. And I said, look, sorry, I can't tell you this, but it's about Peter. And he said, oh, is it the car thing again? Interesting. And that, of course, that related to the fact that his car had been in like prostitute areas.
Okay.
And logged hundreds of times. He didn't make it. I mean, it's incredible he didn't get caught earlier.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, well, it's a bit more serious. So they let us in. I mean, insane, but they let us in, and we sat chatting with them and making notes about this lovely, lovely boy, their son-in-law, who they were, you know, they said, how can he be the Yorkshire Ripper? It's ridiculous. And they gave me what's it? They had a pack of pictures they just picked up from Boots of Peter at their Christmas party. And look at these pictures, and there's a Christmas tree, and there's the Yorkshire Ripper staring at you out of the screen. His eyes are kind of going in both directions. He looked completely raving bonkers.
Yeah.
You just looked at him, and even if you hadn't had the photo fit, you'd say he's dodgy. I'm afraid to say, I said, look, you know, from what you say, it sounds to me like the police have got completely the wrong bloke. I mean, he's a lovely guy. Look at him by the Christmas tree with the kids and everything. Do you mind if we borrow these pictures and, you know, we'll take him up to the cops, and we'll explain that it can't be him because look at the picture. You know, he's a lovely fella. And they said, go with that. And we went with it. I mean, the pictures appeared all over the world in the end. And she, put it this way, Sonia Sutcliffe has said publicly that she forgives Pete. She never really thought Pete did anything particularly wrong, I don't think. I think she just, you know, thought he was a bit quirky.
Yeah.
She was a strange lady. I'm not saying she was complicit. I didn't know, but she was just an oddball.
Okay.
And she has said that she forgives Pete, but she will never forgive the man from the Yorkshire Post who woke her parents up in the middle of the night with the news. And I've always said, I want to have on my gravestone, worse than the Yorkshire Ripper, Sonia Sutcliffe.
That's a good one, that. What do you think? There's a theory that he was a friend of Savile, and one of the victims was found not far from Savile's flat. There was a theory that Savile may have been complicit, and he may have had kind of an accomplice.
I think that's probably putting two and two together.
Yeah.
I can't quite see it. Can you just hold it 1 sec, mate?
Yeah, no problem.
Hold the recording there 1 sec. Jimmy Savile, accomplice. I think it's more putting two and two together.
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy Savile's an interesting case, right? When I first arrived in Leeds, you know, it was known he was a local character and everything. I always thought he was revolting. And it's funny, my wife as well, just, you know, from the age of like 10, just thought, what a horrible creep.
Did you meet him? Did you meet
I
him?
never met. No, I never met Jimmy Savile. Or did I? No, I never met Jimmy Savile. But he was, he was a known thing. And I was having in my first few months as a reporter in Leeds, I was having a conversation late one night with a couple of the guys. And there was a sports reporter, and there was also this crime guy, Roger, who later, was my kind of, guru. I got to talking about Jimmy Savile, and they were saying, "Oh, yeah, Jimmy Savile," and they were telling me all about him.
Okay.
And basically everything was known. They said, in those days, the phrase they used, "Oh, he's known to be a kiddie fiddler."
Right.
And there's been some funny things.
Jonathan? Colin, we have an issue. It's frozen.
So Jimmy Savile was known as a kiddie fiddler. He was known as a pervert. And I said to my, older colleagues, well, don't you think, we're the Yorkshire Post, don't you think we ought to be writing something about this or investigating it?
Okay.
And Roger, the crime guy, took me to one side and said, look, he said, Jimmy Savile is a very, very dangerous man.
Really?
He said, you're a young guy, young baby. He has connections everywhere. He said, it'd be very brave of you to be the first person to dare to do it. But he said I wouldn't go near it. He said it's like, he's a thug and a pervert and a known. And so for 30 years, I watched him, hanging around with the Royals. Jim will fix it. I mean, my oldest daughter, she still laughs when I say this. She said, you didn't stop me writing to Jim will fix it though, did you? And okay, do you want to hear a controversial theory, right?
Go on. Okay.
Things you can't say in public, and I'm now saying in public.
Okay.
Do you remember Clunk Click Every Trip?
I certainly do. I'll just say briefly, there's one advert where he goes up to a kid in a wheelchair and this kid's paralysed from the neck down. And he says, now then, Maximilian, you won't go disco dancing anytime soon. And I thought, fucking hell. Fucking harsh.
That's a very good impression, Jim. I like that.
Thank you. I found him very therapeutic, a nice Savile impression every now and then, Jonathan,
let's not go there, mate. But it was seeing him kind of, loved as this character. First of all, both me and my wife had thought he was a complete creep from when we were children. Secondly, he was this public figure. But my point is, Clunk Click Every Trip was a very, very effective ad campaign. I mean, we can remember it. Am I still on? Yeah.
Yeah.
We can remember the Clunk Click Every Trip TV ads 40 years later. And my theory is that ad was so clever and so, obviously he didn't write it, he was the front man for it, that it must have saved thousands of lives.
Yeah.
And so if you were to say, publicly, well, Jimmy Savile, he was all the things he was, but he did save thousands of people's lives.
Yeah.
You would probably be, cancelled. It's just one of those, I guess, historical ironies. And I think it's true. And I've said it to people and they've said, yeah, but he didn't write the advert. It wasn't his brainwave. I said, yeah, but he was the familiar voice. You didn't have to see his face. I'm not sure you even heard I'm not sure you saw his face in those ads. I think you did actually.
No.
And he's saying, Clunk Click Every Trip. That's my controversial theory, which will now be wiped out.
Let me throw a theory back at you that I have. Do you think he did all this charity work and the Clunk Click stuff to kind of balance his karma?
I think he did it to like paedophiles do. He did it to get access to. They're known to be very, very cunning.
Okay.
And it was like getting the keys to a sweet shop for him, I imagine.
Yeah, it was almost like a gang lord, wasn't he? Like a powerful mafia boss, really.
Yeah, that was the thing I was told, that his way in the Leeds kind of underworld was wrestling.
Really?
I think he started as a wrestler, and the characters he knew in Leeds were in the wrestling world. and for somebody to be known as a very dangerous man. And I have a very, very dear friend who was also a journalist at that time, and he's now he's left journalism. He's a very highly thought of writer on religion and theology, and a wonderful, wonderful man.
Okay.
Dear, dear friend. And I was having dinner with him in Manchester a couple of years ago, and I said, "Did you know?" He was a couple of years older than me. I said, "Did you know about Savile?" He said, "Yeah, I'd heard all the same stuff." I said, "Why didn't we do anything about it as journalists in Leeds?" And he said, "I've often asked myself the same question. It just wasn't. There was something at that time, kind of slightly jokey about paedophiles. There's that phrase, kiddie fiddler.
Yeah. It kind of satirizes it.
It's not like saying, he's a murderer. A kiddie fiddler, and I think that applied to the Ripper as well. But I was around at the time when, the murders, and you got this from the police at the time, not spoken, but more under the line. It was kind of, they're not really murders because they're prostitutes, and which was just, I guess, a sign of the times. Similar with Bernard Manning. I mean, we've talked about Bernard Manning a lot. Who I wrote a book with.
Yes.
And again, I have a great affection for Bernard, and I think he was a truly great comedian.
Yes, sir.
But he would not survive in today's world. And I mean, my key fact about Bernard was that when he first appeared on a program called The Comedians in 1971, were you even born yet? I don't think you were.
I'm 72. I was born, but I remember the Comedians kind of thing. They were religiously.
He was on one of the early shows of The Comedians, and he was the only one. I've got a video of it somewhere. I haven't got a video machine, but I've got a videotape of it somewhere.
Okay.
Of him on The Comedians, and he was the only comedian that wasn't racist.
Yeah.
Everybody was telling these really, really dodgy jokes on prime time television, 7 p.m. on ITV. Really, really dodgy stuff. He had a very sweet routine about seagulls. I can't quite remember what it was. He's on the front of Blackpool, and he's trying to con a kid out of 2 and 6pence for a seagull.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what it was. If I ever buy a video machine again, I'll digitize it and have it forever. But
don't buy Betamax. But he was a very quick-witted man. If you watch Bernard Manning on interviews, he was very quick-witted. He was a lot of the old comedians, the modern comedians, will slag them off. They'll call them hacks. That they used old material and all this. But there is an art to telling a joke, and now it's kind of like it's kind of vilified jokes in modern comedy and the Edinburgh shows tends to be the spoken word basically. But if you was to like cut all the fat out of that hour of performance to get down to the actual brass tacks of comedy, you'd find probably about 10 to 15 minutes in an hour's show, because the rest is just what you'd call padding. But the old comedians had to perform in working men's clubs. They had to perform in rough pubs, and and that's the best place for a comedian to learn the craft. Now, the modern comedians just basically do comedy clubs, but if you take them out of that environment and you put them in these real life situations, the best comedy club performer will just usually die on their ass, stink the place out, or get paid off.
Did you ever go to Bernard's club?
I went.
Embassy Club.
I went, but it was just as a visit after he died. I did a gig with Bernard once. The Gardener's Arms in Stockport. I can't remember the year. It was about 6 months before he died, and Bernard came on stage and he sat on a chair because he could no longer stand. And he used to do this thing where he came to a venue just before he went on stage, and he left straight after, which is the best way, really. And I had a copy of a book. Your bloody autobiography, your biography. And I thought, I'm never going to get him to sign this. But it was a small kind of gig. And an old woman said to him, "Have you any grandkids, Bernard?" He said, "It's all in my book." So I spied this opportunity. I said, "Bernard, I've got your book here. Will you sign it?" And he goes, "Of course I will, son. Come on stage." And I was dressed all in black. He looked me up and down, and he said, "Am I due some fucking milk tray?" And and then he said, "I said, will you sign it to Jimmy? Get fucked, love, Bernard." And I've still got that book at our house,
Really?
you know.
God, I wish I had one myself. I've got no signed copies, but I didn't know he could write, to be honest. But apart from checks, but he the cleverest bit of I mean, I've always had this theory. You know, you've got these people. Bernard, he was a racist bastard and everything.
Yeah.
And I've had this theory that if the Nazis had invaded and we'd lived in the Fourth Reich, Bernard would have been one of the first people they'd have put up against a wall and shot.
Yeah.
He was an anarchist. He couldn't. There was nothing he couldn't rip up. And the best thing I ever saw was best comedy I ever saw. Even better than you. Was
you can't.
It was a night because I spent a lot of time in the Embassy Club, and it was a particularly kind of leery Friday night, and there's a lot of guys, I think they were skinheads, I mean, at the back of the club, and it was quite nasty actually that night. He was on great form, but he sensed they were a pretty leery bunch of boys at the back, knocking back the pints in kind of t-shirts and braces and skinhead haircuts. And he said, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a bunch of young guys in at the back. They're very, very special, ladies and gentlemen, because they fought at Goose Green, and there's a huge, beery kind of,
Yeah.
And at exactly the right point, he says they're Argentinian, and it was just he was taking the piss out of his audience. He was ripping into them, and he was cutting the ground from under them. It's the exact. He's playing with their perceptions and their prejudices and everything. I just thought it was completely brilliant. He was also really pissing off his base. In Donald Trump terms, we talk about it being his base. They were his core supporters, and he was prepared to make them feel awful, and it was brilliant.
He didn't give a fuck, did he?
He didn't give a. Yeah, I think that would be. He didn't give a fuck.
And that, like you said though, that would, like, I've kind of tried to follow in the old school style, and I've actually been shut down as a comedian now. So this is why I'm doing podcasts. Jonathan, what would be the chances I would pay whatever you wanted to get you to Palletwood Studios, or to come down to you and film? I'm really enjoying talking to you, but I realise we're on limited time.
Look, it's a question when I next come up north, to be honest. I mean, I've not been out of bloody London for 6 months now.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I've been staring out the same window since March.
Bloody hell.
It's funny, I used to... we haven't been very long in this flat. And I used to travel, I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
I was travelling half the year. And the last trip I was on, which was like 5 weeks in the US and then a week in Spain and da-da-da. And I used to occasionally, I've got a webcam up on the shelf. I just like to look in to make sure everything's straight and I haven't been burgled or something.
Okay.
And I used to look at this from all kinds of places, airport lounges and stuff in the States, and think, it's a really nice house I've got. I really ought to spend more time in it.
Yeah.
And it's a case of, be careful what you wish for, because I wasn't reckoning on spending 6 months in it under bloody house arrest. But, so long answer to short question. If I can get up to the north for some reason, I'd be delighted to do that. It's fun talking. It's been great fun talking with you as well. But yeah. So the answer is yes.
Please keep me in mind, as Morrissey once wrote. But I'd actually sell one of my kidneys, Jonathan, to have a filmed conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm totally up for it. Yeah.
But to wrap things up, I know you're a very busy man, and me to be the complicit narcissist. Talking about my book and things like that. it was you kind of like what you read, and that inspired me to get it published. Now, I didn't go through a publishing house because, as you know, the content is quite raw and it's not something that will be published now, kind of thing. What was it that struck you about my book, kind of thing, when I sent you the manuscript?
It was just the honesty of it, and also I love the photo on the cover. It was, a lot of, you were very lucky to have that photo. But there was a kind of a rawness and honesty. It was quite, heart-rending at times. It was funny at times. You just felt, this is a nice guy. Who I'm interested in. Since I've read it.
Yeah, of course. But I remember you saying, "I'll send me the manuscript. I'll read a bit. If I like it, I'll read some more." And then you contacted me, and I thought it was funny because I was in my council house with no carpets, and the email came through on my phone. And you just said, "Yeah, I'm on a flight to New York reading your book," and I just thought the dichotomy of you me in a council house, eating custard creams, and then you're flying to New York to do like showbiz things, kind of thing. But can you just kind of you really did put a forward in my book, didn't you? I've not made that up in case anybody. At the start of my book, you did a forward saying you liked it and all that. I just wanted to put reasons of authenticity so people don't think I'm a liar, kind of thing, But,
no. I mean, been there, read it. It's a good read, well worth buying. How much is it, Jim?
£10, Jonathan, but I accept milk tokens and Green Shield stamps also. If people
£9.99 Green Shield stamps. Jesus. I wonder how you need about a van full of Green Shield stamps, something for a tenner, wouldn't you? So.
I know it's all Bitcoin these days, though, isn't it?
Apparently, yeah.
You've been a technological man. Now, Jonathan, I know you're very busy, and we're going to wrap up now. But thank you very, very much for giving me your time. I really hope we get you in Palletwood Studios and film you. That would be amazing to get you up here.
Great pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting. And does Colin know what division are Wigan in now, or they're being chucked out? I can't remember.
Colin, what division are Wigan in? Come here a minute. What division are Wigan in?
As in football?
Yeah.
They've gone into administration.
They've gone into administration because the owner's like is a child.
I read about that, and I just wondered if they're still in the league. No,
so is it League One?
League One is, I think, League One they're in. Colin says.
The reason is I follow my team, Nottingham Forest, around.
Okay.
And, I mean, you can't now, but when you can again, the best time might be if there's ever another, Wigan Forest game. Then I could make that my excuse to. I've got mates in Manchester and things. I will come up.
Please.
Come up north.
It will be such an amazing thing to get you on the show. It would, but thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend and God bless.
You too, pal.
Take care, sir.
On screen, please. Cheers.
Bye bye, mate. Bye bye.